Hi, Alan. A little bit different video than some of the other build videos going on, but we'll just kind of do a two-in-one. Uh, so today we're looking at a semi-meta pugilist. The job affinities are a bit of a mess here, but the main things that I was going for were the hunter 400% so that every time I smack an enemy, that I get a flat amount of MP no matter how much intellect I actually have. Intellect being the stat that governs how much MP you get when you do a normal attack. Um, so the difference of your intellect versus the enemy's intellect will determine how much MP you get, but by end game, we're pretty much just getting 5 MP per hit against most enemies, unless you're an intellect-based job, which we are not. But Hunter 400%, I get my punches in, I get my 8 punches, and so 4 normal attacks, and I more or less have a bar of MP to use a combo ability. So that part's important. And then we're going to look at the master points later. I have Pugilist 600% so that my fist abilities or knuckle abilities, their MP costs are cut by half. And then I also have the 400% so that there's a damage dealt bonus here, like about 40% on all your knuckle abilities, including explosive fists. So that helps. And I also have access to more knuckles if I want to do something other than explosive fist. Uh, and then two other things about this for survival purposes. I happen to be using Lionheart as my main form of survival, the Invincible, but you could also use Knight 400% somewhere on the gear. So Invincible, while I am under the effects of Lightbringer, or in this case Dimension Bringer, I don't take HP damage. And so in this case, I'm going to be popping a Dimension Bringer, and if I get hit, Dimension Bringer stops immediately, but I also don't die. So it's kind of like you get one hit, and outside of that, you are on your own. Um, so sort of high risk, high reward type of thing. And then uh, another thing that I have across my gear to save on job affinity slots are the status ailment resistance, so that I can't get silenced or poisoned or paralyzed or any of that, just because of how much of a momentum loss that is. So I have status ailment resistance at 100%, and then just to help soften the blow a little bit, not very much, I do have damage taken at max HP too, about 100% as well, so that when I'm in the rift, I might actually survive a hit uh, at full HP, and monsters are fed and all this good stuff. Pardon me. But here things are not gonna. I basically don't have room to let the enemy breathe. If the enemy breathes, I die. That's kind of how this build is set up. And then I happen to have Samurai and Assassin mostly for stats. The Samurai 600% was originally there for a different build. In our purposes today, it's going to help us critical hit. And the critical hit, even though we have a lot of agility, the critical hit is actually there to help out with the second job, the analyze. So we're going to deviate just a bit to look at that. There's like this, where is it called? This one. A critical hit grants 2 stacks of the analyze effect. And so the idea is that we get to critical hit with our pugilist, either from our charge attack, which I will now switch to phasing palm, our forward attack, or also our after parry attack. So your choice of how you end up doing that. Um, if you do what I'm about to do. Pardon me. Sorry. So the excess samurai is just for stats. So strength and agility is what the samurai brings out of your jobs, if your job actually has those stats. And Pugilist doesn't have very much strength compared to, but yeah, I digress. But it does get some agility, more agility than non-green jobs, we'll say. And then the assassin, that was left over on another build, but I left it in here just for the agility to help out with barrage. Barrage being the higher your agility is compared to the enemy's agility, you're going to get an extra hit, maybe more than one extra hit. And so we'll say explosive fists, you're hitting pretty fast. And if all of those hits are critical hitting, you're building up those analyze stacks pretty quickly. And the hope is that your analyze stacks will just be maxed out within a very short amount of time during the fight. I have so for the most part, I'm not benefiting from anything else really except for the stats, the amount of agility that I get here. If I were to do this build again, I might have samurai in each of these places instead. And then I might just leave the assassin there just for the agility, but it doesn't hurt. Pardon me. And if you are hurting on job affinities, the idea here is that you don't need perfect affinities. So instead of stacking all of these extra things for stats, you could have Knight 400% across those two pieces of Assassin. You could have Void Knight on a third piece. The Void Knight's optional. I just like Haste. Or you could swap out Paladin for two of those assassins instead of the status ailment things. And then now you're covered on all of your defensive bases without worrying about the specific accessory. And if you don't want Hunter 400%, that's fine because you have Samurai 600% that could cover you MP-wise. I realize I'm just talking a bunch of crap at this point, and I almost just kind of want to show the build, but we'll just keep going. On my gear, this is the gear section. On my gear, I have damage dealt knuckle combo ability, and because I'm going to abuse explosive fists, I have damage dealt explosive fist pretty much across my gear. And then I'm split between agility to help out with barrage and also strength to help out with the HP damage. And I happen to have imbue because I really hate Crayclaw and I don't have a lightning or water weapon for Crayclaw, but at least I have some elemental crap that might help out just a tiny little bit given how many punches I'm going to be doing. I don't really know why it's there, but it's there because everything else I had for the knuckles sucked. So, and then I happen to have status ailment resistance on some of these. I did put the MP cost Knuckles combo ability. You don't need that if you have Pugilist 600%, but I put it there because sometimes I like to do double dragon combos and falcon dive and all sorts of crap. Sorry, speaking of which, on my gloves I have falcon dive because sometimes I like to do falcon dive from the first hit instead of the third hit. And this lets me do Falcon's Dive from that. I've been calling it Falcon without the apostrophe S. Except I don't have Falcon Dive here because I also like Gravedigger. But you could potentially put the Falcon's Dive on one of these other slots. Because right now, you cannot put, Takedown or Double Dragon Combo, you can't put those, even with Pugilist 400%, or the Pugilist Handbook, you can't put those on other slots. They're stuck to the third slot. And so that's where whatever Knuckles move you really want to use across all of your slots, and it's a first, second, or third link, you put it on that where it says Falcon's Dive on my claws, that's where you put your preferred move. And those moves being something like double uppercut, gravedigger, steel peak, punch rush, aerial hook, windmill, takedown, falcon's dive, or double dragon combo. Every other move that you have, you're going to have access to from the Pugilist 400%, starting from floor uh, 15 onward, floor 16 of the Rift. So yeah, by Lufeni difficulty. Um, Other parts of gear. I happen to be stacking a crapload of Fenrir because I wanted a mix of strength and agility. Fenrir giving you the most agility out of all of the summons, depending on your job, but it'll still push out the most agility. Uh, and what's the word called? And then it also brings out a lot of strength. And if I had any intellect on this job, I would get a good chunk of intellect too, or at least that's the hope. See, even mage is getting a good chunk of monk, sorry, getting a good chunk of intellect just from the gear alone, where black mage and sage would get a lot. Anywho, I'm sorry, this is not the intellect build. This is that's just Fenrir giving you those stats. Um, on my accessory, I intentionally got rid of any badges that I had for this build so that it's something that you can replicate before floor 200 easier. Um, and yeah, oh my gosh, we better hope that we like get the boss fight down without an issue, or else I'm gonna have to edit this, and that's gonna take longer. So we're trying to do this without editing. Second job. Second job is the hunter, the machinist, so that I can abuse the analyze stacks. And each stack, that's a multiplicative way to bypass the enemy's defense. So all of your damage delts are in one bucket, and all of your bypass enemy resistances, like warrior 600%, your mighty strikes, this machinists or the hunters analyze, they're in a separate bucket and they multiply. And so as a result of that multiplication, I like to do, wow, I screwed up here on the weapon. It's fine. We're going to make it work. So improved effect analyze. We have that stacked up so that as much as we can, so that when we do get our stack of analyze, it's a lot stronger. We have some remnants of another build here, but we're going to keep going. But then we also have the MP cost to analyze because I like to chain cancel. And I like to chain cancel with Gambler on the world map so that I get my little fixed dice, recover MP based on my luck, even though it doesn't say that. But if I can keep the cost low on my analyze, then I can chain cancel with analyze to recover some MP and still get the buff in. And then same thing with the summoner, 120%. When I chain cancel, I get max MP. So for the world map or for a very slow rift that's not timed, that I could maybe just chain cancel my way up. I have some traces of other crap in here, but here's the other most important part of this build. This is, I call it the Lightbringer spam or the Dimension Bringer spam. That's, yeah, in short. The way it works, Cyclic Warrior 600%. You trigger a Soul Shield every time you use a Lightbringer or Dimension Bringer. We have the Void Knight 400%, so that the cost of the Lightbringer or the Dimension Bringer goes down. And then the other part of this, and this is why we can't use the gold hairpin explicitly for this, is when we Soul Shield, we get max MP back based on our MP limit boost rate. So the Void Knight 50% and 120%, those increases in boosts increases boosts to MP limit. That comes into play. And then the Evoker, 120%. This is one of those Todd Howard things where it just works. When you do a regular Soul Shield, this is just your ally's MP. But when Cyclic Warrior 600% triggers this effect, you actually get max MP back yourself. So it's just sort of like a, why does it work this way? It just works. And then we have the Leviathan primary blessing. Whenever you Soul Shield, you get even more max MP back. And then specific to the Hunter, or just whatever job you're going to use as your Lightbringer, Dimension Bringer, spam, we have your Category 4 Master Points. You stack that up as high as you can get it. If your job level is 200 or 250, you actually will lose some max MP per Lightbringer and Dimension Bringer. Nothing that a chain cancel can't fix. But as you get your job levels closer to 270, 285, 300, if you start getting the floors like 100 plus, you'll actually get max MP back when you do the Lightbringer. But just sort of this heads up, if you don't have enough MP to cast it, you can't use it at all. So just kind of the heads up in case you come across command ability MP cost trials, as well as trials that prevent this from happening, which is like the max MP boost and recovery. That will prevent you from spamming this more than like 9 times at best, without like Pilgrim or like Fenrir dodging, which we're not actually going to do. Other things, we're going to look at the remainder gear effects. Ideally, we would have Lightbringer duration, so that every time you do that Lightbringer, it lasts a good chunk of time. Like my Dimension Bringer, it might last 4 friggin' seconds right now, which is amazing, because that might be all I need to kill a boss, which is kind of disappointing. But it is what it is. So Dimension Bringer with the buff duration trials with Lightbringer duration all canceling each other out, I might get about 4 seconds if I haven't Soul Shielded the enemy, and I'm not set up to Soul Shield crap. So buff duration, so that our Analyze doesn't just last 15 seconds, or with the trials on like 10 seconds, that it lasts longer. So I might get 20 seconds, maybe 30, if I really stack that up. And that might be just enough to beat the first boss phase, Soul Burst him, lock him down, and beat the second boss phase. Without trials, that might even be longer. So I have that stacked up, and then I just have luck stacked up all over the place. And then I have that Lionheart in case I accidentally do get tapped while I'm on my second job. And right now, I don't have any status ailment resistance. So, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. I don't have enough. So, if I'm silenced, paralyzed, petrified on my second job, it's over. I'm done. I'm dead. Like that. That's one time I'm dead. So encouraging. Man, this video is probably getting really long now. Let's go to the master points before I tell you my life story. So when I was a boy, okay, so we have pugilists. Right now, I have stacked up strength, agility, and I have the pugilist stacked up at least until 720%, but I threw the last 2 points in there just for giggles. And I usually leave 1 point around because I hate having to flip through the pages to try to get to this. So when I leave 1 point around, it's like, oh, you haven't invested a point. What would you like to do? And I'm like, yay. And I'd rather take the small stat hit than have to flip through like 8 pages or press a button 8 times just to get here. Small things, but it's just what I do. And then I have a smidge of status ailment resistance because I'm not using Paladin 400%. And I have a smidge of critical MP recovery for now to help sustain the channeling of Explosive Fist if it goes on longer than a few seconds, which the hope is it won't. Also, heads up, I haven't actually tested this build before recording this video. So This is all pen to paper theory crafted, but my confidence in it is so high that I'm doing this large recording, and hopefully I don't have to like delete the recording and just take it all back. That would suck. But anywho, I got a good feeling about this, Mario. Um, so Hunter, Hunter, I have the increase MP limit boost rate stacked up, buff duration stacked up. I have some Soul Burst and Soul Shield. I'm sorry, Soul Shield MP recovery stacked just to help out with the Lightbringer spam. Because once you get like 5 or 6 bars of MP, without the Soul Shield MP recovery, you might only have 4 bars of MP left, even though your max is 6 bars of MP. So it's just kind of weird. And you might have to use it twice to actually fill up instead of once. Soul Burst MP recovery, that's in case I accidentally Lightbringer spam on Pugilist and kill my max MP, which has happened, and it sucks. Uh, and then I have Lightbringer duration just to help the bubble last longer. And then I have luck, so when I chain cancel, I get a bit more MP back. And I do apologize for speaking so fast that all the words and captions all run together when I run this through some type of transcription service. Okay, so I'm going to try to chain cancel. Oh, I'm so sorry. I haven't actually gone over the other part. If you are playing with NPCs, I would recommend NPCs that bring out your strength and agility. In this case, I got lazy with Jed, and even though he should be on Samurai, I left him on Assassin. I take that back. We just switched to Samurai. So so your NPCs, they are stat sticks at endgame. Sure, you can build them other ways, but for our purposes, you either dismiss them or they're stat sticks. Those are the two main purposes for them in terms of actual contribution. Because yeah, I digress. That's a whole separate video. So Lionheart, the Invincible, that is how they're going to survive long enough to contribute their stacks. And then all that Lightbringer duration that's on their person, that's going to help when you press your direction pad left or right, uh, and right, that they're going to have anywhere from 20 to 40 to 60 seconds of invincibility. But right now, they can still get paralyzed, poisoned, all sorts of crap. But during those 20 to 60 seconds, they are my invincible stat sticks that will help me defeat the boss. And so, Jed, when I say stat sticks, I really mean Liberator 600%. Even though the stats that Liberator 600% is giving you don't show up on the UI, the allies are giving you 12% of their stats. So in this case, Jed on Samurai is stacked with Fenrir gear and strength and agility all over the place in order to bring out all of that strength and all of that agility so that I get 12% of that. And by itself, it's not very much. But it might still feel like 36 master points or almost like 3 pieces of gear. It's like equipping 3 extra pieces of gear, which is great. So now that I have 2 of them equipped, it's like equipping 6 extra pieces of gear or having all that amount of master points, more than 32 master points. It's it's more like 64 master points. So so yeah, it's almost like getting 128 extra master points or 6 pieces of gear slapped on to help me out. And yeah, I don't always do stuff with. I am messing up one of their. You know what? It's fine. We're gonna keep going. Video's probably 30 minutes by now, probably 21 minutes. Who knows? So I picked Jed Samurai because strength and agility in the greatest amounts equally for an NPC. I picked Sophia as a breaker, even though Dragoon gets more agility because Breaker gets a lot more. Breaker gets the most strength in the game. except that I'm not fully taking advantage of that, but whatever, it's there. If I were using Ash, then Berserker gets more strength than his other jobs, and I don't even remember for her. I think Neon is not the strength person. Neon is if you want stamina or spirit, mostly. Anywho, let's chain cancel. now for the Now for the shortest part of the video, we are going to buff up, and then we're going to buff up, use Analyze, kind of use Dimension Bringer here and there just to refresh our MP, but use Dimension Bringer eventually on the boss, and then we're going to try to do Explosive Fists with a critical hit. We're going to try to do a punch, go forward, and then phasing palm. And that'll help us refresh some of our buffs as well, but it's going to look pretty messy and fast, and it's going to be over faster than the video has been. So let's buff up. So fight's almost over. Halfway down, and then even before the enemy has a chance to like breathe, and then that's kind of how it's done. And I'm just abandoning because I don't actually want the loot. So just a rough idea of how your boss fights go down, and just to kind of drive the point home on a boss that's even faster and more of a pain in the A is Marilith. She is has such high agility that this might result in a loss. I'm sorry, by the way, that field test worked out a lot better than I thought. Whoops. I messed up. I messed up again. So I'm going to drop a bubble before pushing her in hopes that... Yeah, so even Marilith... see how little break damage I did? Even though those were... I think they were all critical hits. So that's just how much agility she has, and we'll say how much break damage your fists are going to start doing. But again, you do not need perfect job affinities for this. And just to kind of recap a little... Oh crap, I forgot I had that on. And just to kind of recap, based on the other videos... Actually, I'm sorry, I will link the other two videos in the description. So, the Wanderer, that's where you're going to get your fusion materials in order to put all this crap together. Probably turn off auto dismantle until you have all the job affinities. Just because if your inventory is like below 200, 300, 400, you might be kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel when you're trying to put all this crap together. And then the mission level plus, the Stymied, or the Stymied, I always mess up that pronunciation, doing that with the Berserker Raider with the Great Sword, just to clear it, preferably with Ninja as your second job. There'll be a video linked in the description for that too. But do not try to get like perfect job affinities here. And my personal preference is get just enough to have a relic on every slot, and then just go. Like, I don't care if at this point if it's remove, which is an intellect-based blessing. It's still better than an artifact, and those stats will more or less help. But yeah, I do apologize if you were looking for a more traditional playthrough experience on Lufenia difficulty. Um, once, depending on your response on the comment, I can make a different video for we'll call it a more balanced general playthrough. Not specific to Pugilist though, but this is how Pugilist would look or feel like for semi-meta or meta endgame. Um, even if, oops, sorry, even if the enemy has like some annoying trials like enemy attacks, deplete, buffs. But if you don't have enemy attacks, deplete, buffs, and you don't plan to go to floor 130, 180, or like some of those floors like 215 crap like that, you can use Lightbringer instead. And that Lightbringer is going to last you for a while. Just as an example, sorry, this video is like overstaying its welcome, but I also wanted you to have like enough, sorry, enough info to like piece all this crap together, um, purely within the scope of how do you decimate or destroy all the fun in the game. Um, so as an example, I have a Lightbringer, and it's going to last, I don't know how long. I'm timing this video, and maybe by the time I finish talking, the video will be over. So yeah, at some point, I will get back to making a more like sort of a recap of how do you keep the game balanced throughout Chaos, Bahamut, Gilgamesh, and Lufenia difficulty. But just kind of the heads up, if you are looking for a like 3-minute boss fight on Lufenia difficulty, you'll want your main offensive stat, whether that's strength or agility. Agility if you're critical hitting and breaking the enemy, and strength for any physical damage. You'll want that stat close to around 200 or 220 or so, and that's a very, very achievable with just a baseline set of relics from Lufenia difficulty, and having your job level at 200 upwards to 250, and having like strength or agility, depending on which way you went, across all of your gear. Survival-wise, your stamina and spirit, if you're going a more traditional route, you'll probably want that to be probably 150 to 180, which is pretty hard to achieve for every job. And it's pretty hard to achieve without taking away from your offense. But that would give you a room to be able to take a couple hits or a few hits, drink a potion, and come back. But unblockable attacks will still end the run. So a lot of that will come with gear and just kind of putting your stuff together. So even if you don't have a Gilgamesh artifact, I'm sorry, accessory, just kind of having the stats to back up a traditional playstyle. But again, not every job can maintain that in Lufenia difficulty as you start putting the trials up. But yeah, I hope that helps. Ideally, I should have made a script, edited it, and all this other crap, but now we just have like a 31 plus minute video or however long this is. Yeah, I hope that helps. And yeah, this will count as my Pugilist contribution in the endgame build series. But yeah, until next time. Is my mic actually on? That would suck if it wasn't.